In this video, I'm going to continue covering the quests that happen in Tirisfal Glades. Now, this is the 4th episode in this series, so if you want to catch up, then start from the beginning by hitting the link up above. But if you're already caught up, then let's find out what happens next in World of Warcraft. Once you leave Brill and arrive at Garen's Haunt, you're greeted by Apothecary Jared, who then starts to criticize that Holland guy back at Brill. He says you don't need a 2-story apothecarium to make a plague. All you need is some love, and maybe some good assistance. He goes on to say that his envoy just delivered him a bushel of gloomweed, which then he goes into a rampage about how he doesn't need gloomweed. Funny how Apothecary Holland said the same thing. Seems like nobody needs gloomweed around here. I can only imagine that Jared's envoy is none other than Gordo. But who knows? What Jared really needs is Doomweed. So he wants you to go pick 10 of them, and says that they can be located near the mass graveyard site north of Brill. Oh, and he says to be mindful of the gnolls in the area. You then ask who the little guy is standing next to Jared, and he says that that's his apprentice, Crispin. He's a plague gnome, but he's bent his knee to Sylvanas. Might as well meet him. So apprentice Crispin says that the graves to the west hold a large number of bodies, and these bodies were victims when the plague first came to Tirisfal. Now, these bodies have been spared from being raised, but the Scourge have sent wrought-hide grave robbers to gather the corpses and use them to increase their army. Crispin wants you to kill the wrought-hide grave robbers at Garen's Haunt and at the mass graveyard, and obtain 6 flasks of embalming ichor, which is used to give the Scourge life. From here, you head out to the gravesite and kill a good amount of wrought-hide grave robbers. Gather the 6 flasks of embalming ichor and pick 10 doomweed. After all of that is done, you head back to Apothecary Jared. When you arrive, you catch Jared murmuring the words, "They brought me gloomweed. Gloomweed!" But once he's seen that you brought him some doomweed, his whole demeanor changes, and he gets really excited to get to work and rewards you with some silver. Jared then mentions that when you were out collecting samples, his experiments led him to realize that he needs more ingredients. He says that poisoning some hapless victim is child's play, but plaguing an entire world? Yeah, that's a bit more difficult. What he needs is several scales from murlocs in the local area. He says you can find them along the coast to the north of here. When you speak to Crispin, he says that you did an excellent job killing the gnolls and obtaining the ichor, and that ichor will be studied by Jared, and might have some secrets that we could use against the Scourge. He then rewards you with a pair of zombie skin boots for your troubles. Now, speaking of gnolls, Crispin mentions one of them by the name of Maggot Eye. He says that he leads a band of renegades, tearing up the glades and stealing whatever corpses he comes by. And Crispin says that we had plans for those bodies, so he wants you to show Maggot Eye no mercy by killing him, and says that he can be found just up the path from us. Crispin also heard that you were heading out for the Murloc scales. While you're there, he wants you to chase away 12 vile-finned tadpoles, mainly because he doesn't want them to seek revenge on us later on, so having you chase them away shows them that the Forsaken and the Horde are not to be messed with. Now, you head out to Maggot Eye and find his hideout, and engage him and his group of gnolls until they all die. Once that's done, you head down to the shore, and kill the Murlocs for their scales. You also scare off the tadpoles while you're at it. After all that's done, you return back to Jared and Crispin to report. Crispin says that with Maggot Eye dead, he hopes to convince Jared into moving their operations into the shack that Maggot Eye was hanging out at. He then rewards you with the Belt of Brill for your efforts. As for scaring the tadpoles, Crispin says that the future generation of Murlocs will learn to fear us. And Jared says that the scales that you brought back are perfect, and he rewards you with some slumber sand for having gathered those. He then mentions that the Agamand mills to the west have been lost to the Scourge. Now, the situation up there it's worse than you think. The Agamand family has been killed, and the area has become the largest Scourge outpost in Tirisfal. Jared wants you to meet up with Coleman Farthing and help him with taking back the mill. So you head out and meet up with Coleman Farthing. At first, Farthing thinks that you're one of the Scourge, but he's just a bit jumpy because he underestimated how bad it was up here. He says that a Captain Dargle has raised the ancestors of the Agamand family, and that he plans on using them against us. Farthing wants you to head out to the Agamand family crypt and kill 5 wailing and rotting ancestors. So you head out and you kill the 5 wailing ancestors and the 5 rotting ancestors. While killing the things around you, you head into the crypt and fight Captain Dargle, who then drops a skull which seems a bit off. Coleman Farthing would be very interested in this. Upon returning the skull back to Farthing, he says that Dargle was a very vicious person in life, and that undeath has not done him any favors, though it suits his personality. Coleman thanks you for bringing back his remains and rewards you with some silver. He also says that your victory will not go unnoticed for killing the ancestors. He then rewards you with the Agamand family bracelet for your actions. Now you learn that the Scourge is forming their base here at Agamand Mills, so that they can stage further attacks within Tirisfal. So needless to say, you gotta take them out. Coleman Farthing wants you to collect 5 notched ribs from the Rattlecage and Cracked Skull soldiers, and 3 blackened skulls from the Dark Eye Bonecasters. And while talking to Farthing, you learn that he used to serve the Agamand family back in the day. They were the most prosperous family in Tirisfal before the plague came. Now the Agamands convinced those that were employed to them to remain and help defend the land when the Scourge first came, including Coleman Farthing. Yeah, well, that didn't turn out so well. Now Farthing wants you to serve the Forsaken by defeating the Agamands who fell to the plague. Farthing also wants you to serve him by bringing back the remains of Gregor, Nisa, Thurman, and Devlin. So you got a lot to do. First off, you head out to kill the Dark Eye Bonecasters and the Rattlecage and Cracked Skull soldiers. With those dead, you obtain the 5 notched ribs and the 3 blackened skulls. After that's done, you engage with each of the Agamand family members and loot them for their remains. Once you finish with all of that, you return once again to Coleman Farthing for killing the Dark Eyes and the Rattlecage and Cracked Skull soldiers. Coleman says that he won't thank you for what needed to be done, but will remember your name. Okay, thanks for that. You also give him the remains of the Agamand family, and Farthing hopes that they felt fear when you killed them off. I guess he's got a real good hate for this family. He then destroys the remains of them except for one, Devlin's. He says that Devlin was the first to succumb to the plague and existed as a slave to the Scourge for a very long time. Longer than most, and his remains may possess knowledge that would be of value to us. He wants you to bring the remains back to Magistrate Severin back in Brill. Looks like we're not done with the Magistrate after all. From here, you head back to Brill and find out what secrets can be extracted from the remains of Devlin Agamand. Man, I really thought that we were gonna finish off Tirisfal Glades with this one, but we're just obviously not done yet. Let's just see where this goes. On another note, thank you to everyone who subscribed to this channel. And if you're not, consider hitting the subscribe button. Also, make sure to hit the bell icon to be notified when the next episode drops. And if you thought this episode was really good, then go ahead and hit the like button so we can spark that YouTube algorithm. And again, thank you to the Patreon subscribers for supporting this channel. If you're interested in joining the Patreon crew, then go ahead and hit the link down below. And with that, we'll see you next week when we find out what happens next in the Tales of Azeroth.